Hi, welcome to the Sage's Cabin podcast. I'm your host, Rox Madeira. So grab a cup of tea and come and join me in the Sage's Cabin as we chat about everything from herbal gardening, herbal medicine, movement practices, wild food, postnatal and just general well-being. Hi, so today I'm talking to Lucy from Wild Roots Foraging, and we're going to talk a little bit about her wild women's circles and what she's going to be doing at the festival and how she uses it with women who have suffered from trauma. Hope you enjoy the podcast. Hi Lucy.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast. We're looking forward to having you at the Wild Food Festival in September. So I'd just be good to start with you telling me a little bit about who you are and what got you into foraging.
Oh, okay. So I live in a little part of the world called Gisborough, which is in the northeast of England. I live right by the countryside, but it wasn't always the way. I actually come from Middlesbrough, which is like a concrete town, industrial town, where there's not a lot of nature. But as a child, I managed to access a lot of nature, and my dad would always take me out and take me places and help me to use my imagination with stories and things like that. And I think I've always kind of had that connection to nature, and I used to quite scarily put a lot of things in my mouth when I was a child. So I'm lucky to be alive today. But I've always had that interest in the natural world. But then as I grew older, I kind of lost it. I feel like the world kind of stole it from me a little bit, told me to be something else and tried to shape me into something else. And then I became ill, both mentally and physically. And the things that the doctors were kind of telling me to do just weren't working. I was feeling a lot worse. And I wanted to try something more natural. And I started to research more natural routes. And that kind of is what took me down the route of foraging. I started to heal myself with the plants that I was finding. And I felt much better for both getting out in nature and for having a more natural diet and plant medicines and things like this. And that is essentially what healed me. And finding that connection, I started to do more research into, this is the way that our ancestors lived for a very, very long time. It's actually very only a small portion of time of human existence that we've been living like this. And so that kind of gave me this kind of push that I needed to kind of spread the message a little bit. I felt like this is something that I've found can support me and has really helped me. And I feel like other people need to know this. So I did my training to teach foraging. And then shortly after that, I set up Wild Women, because supporting women, especially who've had trauma, has been a passion of mine for a while. It's something that I connect with myself. And it turns out there's a lot of women who really want to return to their wild roots too. So I set up a Facebook group, Wild Roots, Wild Women, and it now has 1,000 members in there who are all desperate to return to their wild roots too. And it's such a beautiful, supportive group, all sharing the things that we love. And yeah, that's basically, I think, my journey summed up.
That's really interesting. I think, I find that kind of that connection with I don't know, like you kind of have this almost like a romantic image of like the wise women and, foraging in the hedges and yeah, that kind of way that your ancestors have been. And I think you're right. It's just such a short period of time that we've had this, and we're quite ill as a result of this disconnect from nature. So how do you like connect people back in to their kind of ancestral ways?
So I've literally just followed my intuition on this, and when I've been out walking, kind of let that guide me. What do people need? What helps me the most? And then I've created the things that I think people would benefit from. So the walking in itself, just literally walking in nature, I discovered that because I used to go to like classes like meditation and mindfulness. I would sit in a room with like 4 walls and a roof and no natural light, and somebody telling me to meditate, and I would really struggle to do it. And I've found that when I'm out in nature foraging, I just naturally meditate. I'm naturally mindful about all the sights and smells and sounds, and I just become one with it. And it's like an amazing experience. And then it's like all of a sudden the penny drops. Oh yeah, that's because this is how it was meant to be. We are animals that were supposed to forage. And of course that's going to be good for our mental health because it is us. It is who we are. So I thought, right, that's the first thing we need to bring back. So we do the foraging walks. With the wild women walks, we always start with the foraging. And then quite often we'll have like a silent walk. So we'll do some chatting, and then we'll have maybe 10-15 minutes of just quiet walking, connecting to the plants, listening to the sounds, connecting to our senses. Or we'll also do forest bathing. So we'll head into the forest and we'll have maybe 15-20 minutes of just silence, sitting back under a tree, sitting by a stream, or just wandering and letting our kind of curiosities guide us when we're in the forest. And then we have the connecting. So I'm also like a trained community organizer. And there was the most fantastic course. If anybody's interested in it, look up community organizers. Really recommend it.
What does that involve?
So community organizing is it's about helping people to help themselves, but also by connecting. So it's about like the only thing that you really do as a community organizer is you help people empower themselves rather than kind of doing everything for them. You kind of give them the tools and the advice and the guidance that they need to help themselves, but to come together as a community under like a shared concern or shared interests. And it's a lot more to it than that, but it's really interesting stuff. And the main thing that I took from it was just the power of community and how powerful that can be in terms of healing ourselves and finding the solutions to our own problems. And around that time, I started to discover women's circles, and I started doing a lot of research into that. And I absolutely love this idea that in a women's circle, nobody's trying to fix each other. It's like kind of very equal in terms of power. So there's no one person who has more hierarchy or more power than anyone else. We're all exactly equal. And we can speak as long as we want. We have a talking piece. So whoever holds the talking piece is the only person that speaks, and there's no interruption. You don't even have to speak. You can just sit in silence with your thoughts without any interruption. And that's absolute gold, because that rarely happens in a conversation. And you get to kind of journey with your thoughts, and then eventually you realize that you have the answer. Nobody else has that answer, only you have that. And that's just so empowering as well when you realize that. But also you can work through these things in such a beautifully connected, empathic environment, really supportive environment, where everybody's there not to judge, but just to validate and hold you in that space. And they're absolutely transforming spaces. So I decided that I really wanted to do that. So that's incorporated in there as well. And as well as all of the kind of teachings of the medicinal benefits of the herbs that we're foraging. And so I'll make wild teas. I have little kind of compostable tea bags so the women can forage their own teas and they can decide what's right for them rather than somebody else telling them what to have, which is what we always get. And yeah, it's just all about kind of helping women to find their own power, really.
That sounds really good. That's the workshop that you're offering at the festival, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I think we have lost that connection to community, haven't we? And that kind of going out in nature, and when you're saying about being quite mindful, and I think it is because we would have spent a lot more time really focusing, and we have kind of lost that kind of sixth sense, I guess, in a way, of like that connection and that listening and that silence. So yeah, I think it's nice to be able to do that.
Definitely, yeah.
And then do you find that the women are really receptive to it, and do they get a lot of benefit from it? Like when you said you worked with women with trauma and things.
Absolutely. Like, it's just been the most amazing thing is really I'm not doing anything other than kind of introducing them to these ways. And they're always just like, wow, this has changed things so much for me. I've had like some massive shifts. But the thing is, the women are doing the work themselves. I'm not doing anything other than like being there in support and showing them these ways of doing things. And I just can't believe like how the changes that people are getting from attending these circles and these spaces, and it's just fantastic. I love the feedback that I get. It's absolutely brilliant.
Do you ever get any like kind of backlash from like men saying, you know, why don't we have a circle? Why is it a women's circle?
Yes, we do, but not too bad. I've only ever had like one really rude comment in a foraging group once, but actually we have set up a wild men group as well very recently. I've found a fantastic facilitator called Mark, who's going to start running wild men circles as well, because we do feel that it's something that men need too. You know, it's nice to have your own spaces like that, isn't it, as well? So yeah, it's fantastic for both, but at the same time it is still needed for women, definitely.
Yeah. And are you doing a kids workshop at the festival as well?
Yes, we're doing a little kids foraging walk as well.
And what are you going to do in that?
So yeah, it's just a little introduction to kind of the fun side of foraging. We're going to be looking at kind of how you can heal yourself from a nettle sting, and how you can make cleavers crowns, like magic fairy crowns with wildflowers and things like that. And yeah, we'll just be looking at all the different uses, how you can make wild pizzas with things, and all the fun side, really.
That's great. So and how can people connect with you and what you do?
So I have a Facebook page, Wild Roots Foraging, and I've got a website as well, Wild Roots Foraging, and I have a Facebook group for the Wild Women. That's Wild Roots Wild Women, and I also have Instagram, which is Wild Roots Foraging too. So lots of ways that you can connect.
That's great. So thank you very much for talking to me today.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you at the festival.
Cheers. See you soon.
Bye. So I hope you enjoyed that podcast. Lucy will be at the festival in September on the 18th and 19th, and she'll be there on both days, Saturday and Sunday, offering the Wild Women's Circles and also some kids foraging walks. So it should be great. So the tickets for the festival are on sale now, and the bookings are now open for all of the workshops. And you need to book in advance, but you pay the facilitators on the day. So if you enjoyed the podcast, please like, share, subscribe. Hope to see you at the festival in September. And if not, we'll see you in the little live Instagram. We're going to post videos of the festival as it happens. So the website for booking the festival tickets and the workshops is www.scottishwildfoodfestival.co.uk. And we'll see you in the Instagram page, the Scottish Wild Food Festival.